So, I'm back. The last two episodes you've seen have been these massive directors that had some impact on me on first viewing or just been a fan for a long time. But there was always this fascination with them. But after doing those two directors, I wanted to do someone that had a distinct style and a person that felt like he wanted to stay trapped in a certain generation, or would you say childhood? And going down the rabbit hole of this director was something that I was not expecting. It caught me off guard completely, shooting out to be one of my favorite directors of all time because of the pure fascination I have with this person. I even went to the distinct path of reading a book based off this person, when I was told by countless people saying that he was too private and you could not know much about this person. But I am here to tell you why I disagree with that. I feel like everything he was trying to say was out there, but people weren't listening. Welcome to the A-List. Welcome back to another episode of the A-List. I am your host, Wiley Todd, and today we are tackling the director, John Hughes, of countless films like Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, all these classic teen movies. But a lot of people like to stick him in that genre. But his more personal stuff was actually stuff that was stuff around his age, and the stuff that he was going through, the hardest moments of his life. And technically, all the movies that he wrote and made were movies that were problems in his life, but he always found the silver lining in it. If it happened to him in reality, or he was trying to make a story and wrap up. John Hughes is also seen in the quote saying that he would never want to end a movie with a bad ending, because to him, movies were a big part of his life, and also music was also a massive part of his life as well. But John Hughes is a very, very fascinating person, and I have never felt this with a person that I have ever done the A-List. Even though Robert Downey Jr., the first person I ever did on the show, always had this troubling background, but he found his way out. John Hughes did in a certain extent, but at the same time, he was always that person that he was reflecting on in these movies. But again, this episode of the A-List is going to be a different one. Usually I would go to the next part of the show where you guys would learn about his life. Yeah, you're going to learn where he lived, what his childhood was, basically, and what he has done. What is he known for? But what's different about this episode is, and during the show when I'm talking about these movies, I'm going to go into the background of John Hughes and maybe the psyche of what he was doing with each movie that I explored. And I will say this might be a long episode, even to the point where I didn't watch all his filmography up to basically the 2000s. So if you guys want to see a part 2, let me know in the comment section below, because I will definitely go into that part. There's a lot of interesting. So let's get into his life.
John Hughes was born February 18, 1950 in Lansing, Michigan, and died August 6, 2009. American film director, writer, and producer who was in the 1980s established the modern American teen movie as a genre. Hughes successfully portrayed the reality of adolescent life while maintaining a funny and lighthearted tone. As a teen, Hughes moved with his family to Chicago, the city whose visions would later serve as the setting for many of his films. He attended the University of Arizona in Tucson, left before graduating, and returned to Chicago to work as an advertising copywriter. He began his comedy career writing jokes for stand-up comedians such as Rodney Dangerfield. His film career was launched when he began writing screenplays for movies produced by National Lampoon magazine. After finding success as a screenwriter for Class Reunion, 1982, National Lampoon's Vacation, 1983, and other comedies, he wrote, directed, and sometimes produced the string of teen-oriented films that would make him famous. He founded his own production company in 1985, 16 Candles, 1984, followed by The Breakfast Club, 1985, and Pretty in Pink, 1986. Made stars out of a group of young actors, Molly Ringwald, Emilio Estevez, and Judd Nelson, among them, who collectively became known as the Brat Pack. This name was a play on the Rat Pack, a close-knit group of celebrities of an earlier era that included Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. Hughes also found success in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986, which he wrote, directed, and produced. Starring Matthew Broderick as the boisterous hooky-playing high schooler, the film typified the us versus them mentality of Hughes' most beloved films. Hughes collaborated with the well-established comedian John Candy and Steve Martin in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, 1987. Candy later appeared in the Hughes-penned Uncle Buck, 1989. In financial terms, Hughes' greatest success was Home Alone, 1990, directed by Chris Columbus, a film starring Macaulay Culkin as a child left to his own devices when his parents lost track of him on their way to a vacation in France. It inspired 3 sequels: Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, Home Alone 3, and Home Alone 4, all of which were written by Hughes. Although he continued to produce and to write screenplays during the 1990s, he directed his last film, Curly Sue, in 1991. He produced Miracle on 34th Street in 1994, a remake of the classic 1947 film, and New York South, 2001, a film written by his son James. Among the films he was credited with writing under his pseudonym were Made in Manhattan, 2002, and Driblet Taylor, 2008. He died of a heart attack while in Manhattan.
So John Hughes was a person that worked hard for what he wanted. And when he started his career, it did not start on the right foot. He was living in Chicago and he was working for a agency that he was not happy with. But he wanted to work with National Lampoon because he always admired them. And he always had to work to get there. And one day he finally got that job, working and writing for National Lampoon. He would be known for making these little kind of articles that had these contained stories in them on the magazine itself. But what you didn't know was behind the scenes of him working there. Yes, you probably read those, you probably knew about them, and you're probably like, Wiley, we all know about this. But here's the thing. Johnny Hughes was this person that was known for his hard work and dedication. He would be known for where he would have 2 jobs, even though each boss only knew they were working for them. So John Hughes would go, and he would leave his job in the middle of the day in Chicago and fly all the way to Los Angeles to work for National Lampoon. He would even leave his coat and a coffee there to make sure he just went to the bathroom. But in actually reality, he was going to LA to write and work for National Lampoon. With him writing all these articles, it kind of started to get his whole start happening. The people were really liking what he was doing, and he wanted to work in the movie business because he's always been fascinated with it. He got his first break October 29th, 1982 in Class Reunion. He wrote the movie, didn't really get received well. And I will say I didn't watch this one, guys, because it did not feel like it was a John Hughes movie that really, really was meaningful to him besides being his first start. But again, we can come back to it. So in 1983 was kind of a big year for John Hughes. Yes, he was writing articles in the National Lampoon magazine, but a person found his articles fascinating, and they wanted to work with him on movies. One of those articles was Vacation, and one of those articles was Vacation 58, which the person that was reading it was like, this could be turned into a movie. This could be something cinematic. So from that moment, they took the story and they wrote the movie Vacation. And it went into production. But during that production, he was meeting with one of his closest friends, a producer. And they were talking on the phone, and John Hughes was complaining about his life and how his wife was away and he had to do all the things that she usually did. And it was odd, like vacuuming and all that, which stuff he didn't do and did not know how to do, so it was this big mountain to climb. And that created the movie Mr. Mom. Mr. Mom is a fascinating thing for me for John Hughes' whole filmography. Because yes, they had this story that they felt like could be good that was told over the phone. He wrote the script. It was going well. But these producers that were dealing with it were kind of scumbags, and they were not good people. And what happened is he was writing the script. I was about to go. And what happened is they kicked him off their production, fired him completely. And those two producers ended up writing the script, Mr. Mom. But eventually those two people were found for embezzlement. Don't ask me why, because I don't know. It wasn't told in the book. But that brings the question, why is it still in his name if he was fired? Why does he still praise it? And he probably doesn't praise it. I never really heard him talk about it. Well, in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you can see a license tag that says Mr. Mom. Why would he praise something that he got fired off and his story changed completely on Mr. Mom? It's also just a very fascinating movie in itself. Mr. Mom came out July 22nd, 1983. And this movie was kind of a fun watch to me. It was a nice little good comedy with Michael Keaton that I enjoyed. Kind of slow. Wasn't really super fast paced. I enjoyed it. But it was also told that John Hughes' version of this movie was pretty dirty. And some weird stuff happened in it. And they changed it. So yeah, you could be for the better if this is one of your favorite movies. But again, kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Will I ever watch it again because of this? Probably not, because I'm a John Hughes fan now. And I feel like he got screwed on this project. So do I really want to support that anymore? That's up for you to decide. So July 29th, 1983, we had Vacation. The classic Vacation from National Lampoon with Chevy Chase. Everyone knows this movie. It's very, very fascinating. It's funny. But I really want to talk about John Hughes in this movie. He wrote the script for this movie. And yeah, he wrote an article, so it was based off that, and they were making it. But John Hughes was very, very good with his actors. When someone would be cast, he would write a whole script in that person's voice. Even when he met people, he would work with them just to get them that job, which is fascinating in itself. So when all that stuff was happening, everything was just kind of working with John Hughes. He would find a person that would be cast, and they would literally write the script in that voice. And that's how we got the famous Clark Griswold, which we would never really get otherwise if it wasn't for John Hughes, because he wrote that voice distinctly for Chevy Chase. But this would also start a big relationship with John Hughes in general. You know, you got, of course, Anthony Michael Hall, which he'll go on to do most of his movies that he has done. And plus, you also have the beginning of John Candy. But with those two movies, he kind of got screwed over for the script. Not Vacation, but Mr. Mom, he completely did. And this kind of changed something in John Hughes, where he felt like he wanted to have complete control over his script, so he created 16 Candles, which, when going over, so after Vacation, he wanted to take control of everything in the world of movies and wanted to direct. So he created a little script called The Breakfast Club, which everyone kind of knows this part where when he was casting The Breakfast Club, because he felt like it was going to be this small contained movie that didn't have these big super set pieces just in one place, a few actors, simple story, and he wanted to start with that because he doesn't know really what he was doing. But when he was looking at the casting, he saw Molly Ringwald as the character in 16 Candles, so he wrote that script in at least one day and literally looking at the picture and writing it, which is so fascinating to me in general. How could someone do that? That is so fascinating. So because of that script and people liked it, they bought it. So therefore, 16 Candles was made first. And it came 1984, May 4th. And this movie came out and it blew up. Everyone loved 16 Candles. A lot of things with this movie kind of came out after John Hughes over the years, where they felt like Anthony Michael Hall's character in the movie was trying to rape Molly Ringwald's character. But I did not really get that sense of it. But also at the same time, it was not really that. But you can definitely take it. I'm sure someone else would probably take it that way. And then also you had a racist character of Long Duck Dong, which a lot of people consider racist. But here's the thing. John Hughes will defend that, and even the actor himself that played the character will defend it. So when he came into the audition room, he came in with that voice, acting like he could not speak English whatsoever. But one day, the casting agent was calling them just to kind of say that you got the part, but he answered in a normal tone voice. And he said to the casting agent that he made up that voice. And they both decided at that moment, let's don't tell John Hughes that. And that's how that kind of came. So I feel like that racism and the rape thing could be kind of defended. But at the same time, I do think this movie's dated. Again, I feel like this is probably one of the weakest of John Hughes movies. It's very iconic. People have tried to remake it. It wouldn't work. Again, I feel like this one could be made better today in a movie standpoint, but a script, probably not, because John Hughes is that amazement. And that's why you've seen at least 2 to 3 remakes of this movie that have both failed and they've all been on Disney. So that tells you something alone. So, then came the movie he was trying to make before 16 Candles that eventually would blow him up, even getting him a Criterion movie. And that is, of course, The Breakfast Club. That came out in 1985, February 15th. And this movie was a massive hit. Even people dressing up like it. Everyone was relating to these characters. And of course you had the continuation of Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald onto this movie, which you'll continue to see. And that was just kind of fascinating in itself. But again, John Hughes was really, really, really close to everyone on this set. And if you look at any of his movies and any of the background, they were. And to say that John Hughes was the nicest guy on set, at this time, I think you could say that. Because he was in this collaborative effort. He was working with everyone. They would be cast, they would rewrite the script. But again, he already had 2 people established, so he kind of just fixed it around, you know. But also, a lot of things happened on the first day of shooting. People were like, I don't really feel like this is right, the actor said. So they sat down, did a table read, and they all fixed it, and they got this overall script. It turned out to be like 3 hours long. We'll never see that cut ever. You can kind of see some deleted scenes on the Criterion, but not that much. And it kind of just become this class of hit where everyone knows this movie. And everyone can relate to one of these characters. And yeah, I was watching and I was kind of saying, I did a review with one of my friends. It disappeared, so I'm going to just mention it here. What happened was I was watching and I was like, I don't know if I can relate to these characters. And the more and more I thought about it, I realized I could relate to them. And that's amazing. We're in 2020. This movie came out in 1985. And we can still relate to it is something fascinating. But I think that's only because of one reason. Each one of these stories is so personal to the character of John Hughes. Everything. And I feel like John Hughes considered himself the Anthony Michael Hall character. But again, he listened to people. There's no way that he can know what the girls are feeling. You know, there always is that overwhelming kind of feeling of knowing what everyone's kind of feeling in a sense, but not really deep inside. That's why I felt like he was so close to everyone, because he felt like these characters were representing every one of these actors, so they got to speak what they think they would do with the character, and that's what made it so special. It was this big collaborative effort, but again, it was John Hughes' heart in the beginning of it. So after John Hughes made this big hit 16 Candles and big hit Breakfast Club, he got called up from, of course, National Lampoon after vacation. Like, hey, man, we got to make another one of these. We have to. Because the first one was big, and we got to just go for it. You know, we got to go to another one. John Hughes wasn't feeling it, you know? But, yeah, he started at National Lampoon. He kind of felt like he owed something to them. So he wrote the script of European Vacation, and he has since said that he does not like the movie's script, and he feels bad for it, which will continue that story later on. But again, European Vacation was a movie that just kind of felt flat, you know? It didn't have that love in it. You still had the Chevy Chase character and the Beverly D'Angelo character, which are great. They're perfect together in this movie, and there's some good moments. But man, this movie does fall apart. It is bad. It's really bad. And that's the thing. John Hughes knows when he writes a bad script and he's not into it. And he has said that he does not like this movie. and he felt bad for it because he was that type of person. But also, he was a very emotional person, John Hughes, a very emotional person, which the little things that would happen to him would kind of lead to the downfall to John Hughes, of him leaving Hollywood and eventually what happens to him. Because at this point, he was being so popular and writing all these scripts and doing it nonstop, even having scripts have never been seen since he wrote them. There are scripts out there made by John Hughes that no one has ever seen, which is so fascinating to me. And the bigger and bigger I get, I want to get closer to the John Hughes family and learn more about this guy, because he is so fascinating as a human being to me. But again, it came out the same year of Breakfast Club, July 26, 1985. Then John Hughes wanted to make another movie, directed and written by him, and that is, of course, Weird Science, where you get to see a young Robert Downey Jr., and you also get Anthony Michael Hall again, and you also get Bill Paxton. So, yeah, everyone knows Weird Science. It is a weird freaking movie, and watching it for the first time for this series is fascinating to me in itself, because it's a weird ass movie. But when it comes to the end and what the meaning of it all is, just phenomenal and beautiful in itself. And I love the meaning of the movie. But it's freaking bonkers as hell. And it does feel 80s. And I do like it for that. But again, I feel like there was a very little part of John Hughes in this movie, in my opinion. And it did not feel like he was fully in this movie besides the end and the main lining of this movie. It kind of felt like, I want to do a weird movie. That's what it kind of felt like, this movie. And from that, I just felt like, let's just write it. I want to get this meaning out there, what I was trying to say. That's what it felt like. There's not much information about Weird Science besides everyone loves this movie. But again, it was a fascinating watch for me. Would I ever watch it again? Maybe, because it's fascinating to me and I want to know more about it. But again, it doesn't feel like it's super John Hughes. And that is something that's important to me as a John Hughes fan now, and learning more about him.